Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and we're back in the emergency storage shed for episode 91 this week. And if you are watching, a lot of viewers watch but don't subscribe. It really helps us content creators out if we get some subscriptions. It doesn't cost you anything, doesn't in essence make us any more money either, but it's nice to have the channel grow, and eventually the algorithm all works together to make it worthwhile for me putting these videos out. So hit that subscribe button. I know a lot of content creators say that, and give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. It does all help. So there you go, I've said it. Let's get back to the job at hand. We do have to continue emptying this big shelf behind me. We're up to that amazing looking old trunk, and I seriously have no idea what's in it. I'm kind of hoping there's old tools. I don't think there'd be scrap metal. There could be electronic stuff. A trunk tends to make me think there's good gear in there, but then again, when it was packed up, it might have just been another receptacle to put junk in. Let's go and have a look. It is a nice old trunk, and regardless of what's in it, we're going to be thinking, well, I'm thinking $30 or $40, maybe even $50 just in the trunk alone. Bathroom scales, don't think I need those. We might just put them in the shop for $5. We'll check them out as well in this video. We have to deal with everything, and if you are new here, I'm unpacking this shed and I'm trying to be disciplined with what I keep. I'm trying to make decisions, and hopefully in that process it helps you guys learn to clean up and make decisions. It's got a nice old lock. I wouldn't have it. Oh, I might have a key actually, and it feels like it's pretty heavy. Let's get it through to the bench and do a very suspenseful opening. I might actually hang on to these bathroom scales. They are the old analog ones, and they're handy for weighing buckets of scrap and brass and things. And the good thing with the analog ones is that there's no batteries to go flat, and they're nice flat. There's no raised bit where the dial is, so I can just put a drum straight on there as long as I can read it. So I think they'll be handy. If I was to sell them, they're pretty grotty. I'd probably only put $5 on them, but I think they're more useful here. So that'll do for those. Now this trunk's got a bit of weight to it, so who knows what's in it. Let's adjust the camera. Okay, it's good that it hasn't been painted too. It's going to have a really nice rustic patina. I will wash it up, and I think I'll probably just spray it with clear lacquer, and I think it should look great, and I think there's going to be $50 in it, as I say. Well, maybe there is $50 in it. Let's have a look. Oh, okay, there's some interesting looking bits. It looks like car parts or a bit of a mixture. Oh, there might be some electrical bits, Bakelite electrical fittings. Oh, look at the decal there on the middle. So that's the original paint job. The brass lock is there. Hopefully I can find a key for it. But yeah, that's kind of nice. The hinges are good. What do we have here? These look like interior lights. Yeah, they are. They're an interior light from a car. I would estimate them to be probably 1950s. Now, identifying what make car they're out of could be the challenge. So if you know, leave a comment down below. I'm going to do a bit of checking as well, and I might be able to find out roughly what they suit. But they're going to be, I would think they're going to be at least $10 each. They don't have globes in them. Yeah, cool. Some other car parts. Here's a distributor cap. Now, it would be off a V8, well, an 8-cylinder. And it's probably a Bakelite. It looks quite old. I can't see any damage to it. Needs a good clean up. That would be nice to find out what that's off. It might be a good item to put on eBay. Again, we need to identify what model it suits. Now, this is looks like a distributor, or part of a distributor, which is what I wonder if this one actually fits it. It does. So a distributor in a petrol engine is what initiates the spark to go to each spark plug in the correct order for the engine to run. So that's certainly, yep, there's the notch, so it goes that way. It has to locate, of course. All right, so those two go together. Would probably sell them together. We need to work out what model they're off. We have a couple of, we had one of these in the last box, and there's a couple here. These are fuel bowls. That's a very thick one. So they're basically like a sediment trap on an old fuel pump. Probably from probably not a car, I wouldn't imagine. Could have been a tractor or something. Now we have a lot of metal conduit fittings. These are for electrical conduit. They don't really use these anymore. It always amused me that they use metal piping for electricity. So if you have a wire rub through, the entire framework becomes live. So there's T-pieces. I don't think they're going to be of much value at all. I'll box them all up and I'll put them in the shop. I'll give them a chance, but it'll be cheap. I might just make them $5 a lot. People might have another use for them. They're certainly no good for water. They're not going to seal, and you wouldn't use metal like this for water anyway. They'll rust. They've got a lot of little clamps on them. So there's quite a lot in here. I'll put all these in a box and probably just $5 a lot. If we can't sell them, they'll go for scrap metal. All right, we have some Bakelite fittings here. The old light switches, that one's cracked and it doesn't work properly. This one looks okay. Now these things, I sell these for $5 each. They sell quite well, but I might, there's some parts, that's actually off a plug. An early, probably 1950s ring grip mains plug. Similar to what you'd find in a lot of old radios or other appliances. That's a, for party lights, you'd have a whole string of these with probably coloured globes, and the wire just passes through the base of them and actually presses on a couple of very sharp spikes. So the spikes just pierce the insulation, touch the wire inside. You would then screw the cap on to press the wire in hard onto the spikes. And if all goes well, you have a light globe here that lights up, and you have a whole string of these. Probably not likely to sell either. I think it's a bit of a dodgy way of making connection, to be honest. There's a few of them, so perhaps I'll put them in a box in the shop as well. That's a heavy rubber, some sort of vibration mount or something, I think. You have the bottom of a Vesta tin, old matches, because that's the strike. So that's only the bottom. There's a gauge here. Don't know what that gauge is. It's a bit hard to read. It might be an oil pressure gauge. So quite an old piece. It's obviously not in the best of condition. Lots more switches, and that's got a breakage as well. So I might be able to make up, that's a better one. So these switches, as I said, I'll get $5 each for those. And the broken ones I might be able to mix and match. There's some old ceramic fuses here. There's nice pieces of copper on that. That's probably the only value in that. I don't even have the holders for them. They're just the wedges that plug into the holder. Not much value there. Part of an old light fitting. It's brass, that one. All right, a real mixed bag. I'm going to tip all these out. I'll sort them out on the bench. There's even a little bit of wiring, so we're going to get some scrap wire. I'll sort it all out and I'll get back to you. I don't think we've got a lot of value. I think the trunk's going to be the best value of the lot. So I've pulled everything out, and I haven't cleaned anything up or sorted anything yet. I thought I'd give you a look. The trunk's not, the little trunk there is not in too bad a condition. It has got some writing on the top of the brass lock there. We'll check that out later. It's a bit loose too, but it's a really nice piece, that trunk. We've got a heap of conduit fittings, a little bit of just general scrap metal, a couple of heavier pieces, small pile of rubbish. Those lenses would have been nice, but they're just not in very good condition. We have little bits of brass, we have lots of other fittings, heaps of Bakelite stuff, but a lot of it damaged, so I'll have to quickly sort that. I'll do that and then get back to you shortly. I was incorrect with this tin. It's not a match striker. It is similar, but it's for roughing up the bicycle tubes before you put a patch on them, and it's actually, I found the lid, it's part of a bicycle repair kit or a cycle outfit. So the lid's actually not in bad condition. One of the hinges is broken, but that makes a saleable little tin. We'll get probably at least $5 for that. So we might even clean it up a bit. We might get 10. But yeah, that's what that's for. Very similar to the old Vestas. It's probably a little bit severe to strike a match on. You'd probably wear the head of the match away very quickly. But yeah, roughing up the tube so that the glue or the patch will stick and it'll have something to bite into or to key onto the rubber. So there we go. What else did I find? Well, I found this little bracket moulding piece. This little die-cast housing is indeed a fuel pump where these glass bowls mount to. So that's fuel comes in from the tank and out up to the carburetor, fills the bowl, so you have basically a sediment trap And that's where that's from. So now if you see one of these heavy little glasses, they're not shot glasses, although you probably could take a shot of whiskey out of them. They're actually a fuel bowl from an old fuel pump. Almost ready to get to the notepad and have a look at our value. I've just sorted and cleaned and polished and processed all this stuff. Now, a lot of the Bakelite electrical stuff, there was quite a bit damaged. These are the bits that I'm keeping for parts. They've obviously got some breakages in some parts, but I can make up switches out of bits and pieces. These are all the broken bits that were either cracked, chipped, damaged, and I just salvaged any scrap metal I could off those. And there's quite a little pile of brass, a bit of copper, even a little bit of hardware to go in my jars. We've got some good switches. There's 4 nice switches that work well. I have cleaned them up and lubricated them so they work really well. And the light fitting that mounts to the ceiling, that's in good condition. We have some of these old switches. They mount to the ceiling as well, and they had a pull cord where you pulled it and turned the light on. So they're an actual switch. None of them are complete. There's 3 housings and some of the switch mechanisms. I think I might sell those. I'll group them together and we'll put a price on those. The party light fittings, I'll probably just put $5 on the lot. And the rest of this is all going to go in a box for when I'm doing up lamps and things. Well, there's a couple of things for plugs. I do use those because often I get a good plug with this part broken. There's just a power outlet that needs a cover. And a lot of these are off lamps. And I do fix up a lot of old floor lamps and early sort of 30s and 40s era lamps. And I'm often looking for these collars. And they are different threads. They're not all the same thread, these things. These 2 brass light fittings I'll keep because I do make up lamps. So that's all just sort of spare parts stock for myself and parts waiting for, you know, the right bit to fix them up to make a saleable item. It's worth keeping those bits because they're very handy. Bit more copper wire for the scrap bin, and everything else I've cleaned up a bit. I cleaned the oil pressure gauge up. It came out quite well, actually. It's got a really nice aged look to the face. The needle works perfectly. The only flaw is it's got a bit of a slither. You can see to the glass there, it's on the inside. But it cleaned up well. I even found a couple of screws out of one of the electrical fittings that were able to mount it because it was loose. It was missing those screws. So I think we'll go $10 on that. The cycle repair kit will go 10 on as well. It cleaned up quite well. I smeared a bit of beeswax over it, so that's pretty good. And the surprise of the day was this. Now, it looked like just another Bakelite electrical fitting. Technically, it is an electrical fitting. It's a spark plug boot. It is Bakelite, and it is actually branded Champion. I think you can see on the thing there if we get a focus. So it's an early Bakelite spark plug boot that screws on. So that little turn thing screws. And the old spark plugs had thread on the end of them, which that threaded into. And they appear to be quite valuable. I found a couple online overseas that sold for fairly good money. I think I'm going to try and eBay that. We also will eBay this distributor, which I have discovered. It's off a flathead Ford V8, I think 1942 to 1948. It cleaned up quite well. There's no damage to the cap. I didn't really clean the distributor up much at all, certainly not inside, because I didn't want to have a petrol smell if I post it. And I didn't want to wash it with water because it would be very hard to dry out. So we'll try and eBay that one as well. I'm not sure what we're going to get for those. We will talk about that shortly. So there we go. Everything's finished and ready to process. I'm just waiting for that tin trunk to dry outside and we'll have a look at the notepad. The trunk is dry and I've given it a spray with clear lacquer and it looks fantastic. I'm pretty sure this is the original colour. I have seen other early trunks in this sort of orange colour. And it's almost a marbling effect. It's a bit hard to see on this one, it's quite weathered. But you almost get a bit of a marbling effect. Maybe they were repainted, maybe it was a bit of a phase where everyone went through and painted things orange. Like in the 70s, a lot of people painted things mission brown. It looked great, it works fantastic. I cleaned it out inside. The hinges are good, as I mentioned earlier. I gave it a bit of a spray inside as well, so it's nice and clean. I did tighten the lock up. I actually buffed it up and I'm a bit annoyed with myself because I'm the first to tell you don't over polish brass. It looks like a reproduction. I probably should have just used steel wool, but I put it on my buffing wheel and it took it back a little quicker than I expected. But we can read it. It's Hobbs & Co. London, lever machine made. You know it's early when they brag that it's made by a machine. I think it's late 1800s. I did read that Hobbs & Co. started in 1850 or thereabouts, 1851 I think, and by 1860 or somewhere around that date they added another name to the company, but I don't think it's that early, and you can't go by that. Things you read on Wikipedia aren't always correct. I don't think it's as old as 1850s, but I think it's certainly late 1800s, and it's a nice piece. I reckon I'm going to have no troubles getting $50 for that. It does have a little bit of rust through the bottom. The bottom must have been damp at one stage, and there is a little bit of a hole just at the back there. But really, it's a great example of an early tin trunk, and it looks magnificent. So there we go. The notepad. I've cleaned everything else off the counter except the stuff we're going to sell. And we ended up with a total of $240, where we didn't think there was much good stuff here. But let me just qualify that, because I have allowed $50 for the Ford Flathead distributor and the cap, and I've allowed $50 for that Champion spark plug boot, one of the smallest items in the box. And I'm going to try it on eBay. That's why I've got an asterisk here. We're going to put these two things on eBay. I'll start them at $60 each, because then I'll get about my $50 when you take fees into account. That will be fairly cheap to post. The distributor weighs a bit more, but it'll probably go in a prepaid satchel. We'll see how we go. I reckon they're worth about that based on what I've read. They could even go higher if someone wants them. I found a few of these distributor caps online. In fact, every one of them I found was a replica. Well, they're a new, what do they call it? They're not a replica. They're not a fake. They're not a well, I guess they're a reproduction, but they make them to suit people that are doing up these old flathead V8s. And I didn't see any original caps out there. And the reproduced ones were selling for about $80. So we'll see how we go. With the distributor, even though it's a little bit incomplete, I did find, I think that's the condenser out of it. It would have had a set of points in there as well, which is only half there. Anyway, that's what I reckon we'll try and get for it. If you want to follow those on eBay, I will be putting them in my online sales playlist, where I'm following everything I'm selling online, and you can watch to see how they go. I will try and remember to report back in the next episode of this series, or whenever they've finished. So there we go. Good price for our antique tin trunk full of goodies. And I've got a good stock of Bakelite electrical bits for future jobs. I need some of that stuff on hand, and I do use it quite regularly. So there we go, some interesting stuff to unpack, some cool stuff to put in the shop. Our total on a notepad now is gone just over $14,600, and it'll be interesting, some of these eBay auctions, because it could actually return us a lot more than what I've allowed. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in the next video. Bye for now.